"Do you have an expired cake for my daughter?" The millionaire heard everything. A story of hidden wealth, humble hearts, and life-changing kindness. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the small bakery on Maple Street. Inside, the sweet aroma of fresh bread and pastries filled the air, mixing with the gentle hum of the refrigerator units. Behind the counter stood Sarah Chen, a young baker with flour-dusted apron and tired eyes that still sparkled with determination. She had opened this modest bakery 3 years ago with her life savings, pouring her heart into every loaf and pastry. It was nearly closing time on a Tuesday when the bell above the door chimed softly. Sarah looked up from wiping down the counter to see a woman entering, thin, wearing a faded coat despite the mild weather, and holding the hand of a small girl with bright, curious eyes. The little girl couldn't have been more than 6 years old, with dark braids tied with mismatched ribbons and shoes that had seen better days. "Good evening," Sarah greeted them warmly. "How can I help you today?" The woman approached the counter hesitantly, her cheeks flushing pink. She glanced at her daughter, then back at Sarah. Her voice came out barely above a whisper, trembling with embarrassment. I have a strange request," she began, her fingers nervously clutching her daughter's hand tighter. "Do you have any expired cakes? My daughter's birthday is tomorrow, and Her voice cracked. "I can't afford a fresh one, but I wanted to give her something special." The little girl looked up at her mother with wide, understanding eyes, too understanding for someone so young. She tugged at her mother's coat sleeve. "It's okay, Mama. We don't need a cake. I'm happy with anything." Sarah's heart clenched. She had seen struggle in her own life, remembered her own mother working 3 jobs to put food on the table. She opened her mouth to respond when a voice came from behind the shelves near the window, a deep, measured voice that carried quiet authority. "Excuse me." All 3 of them turned to see a man emerging from the small seating area. He was perhaps in his late 50s, dressed in an unremarkable gray sweater and dark jeans. His appearance was ordinary, almost deliberately plain, but something in his bearing commanded attention. His silver hair was neatly combed, and his eyes, sharp and observant, held a kindness that immediately put one at ease. He had been sitting there for the past hour, Sarah realized, quietly reading a newspaper with a cup of coffee that had long gone cold. She had barely noticed him, which seemed to be exactly his intention. "I couldn't help but overhear," the man said gently, approaching the counter. He looked at the mother with respect, not pity. "Please forgive my intrusion, but I have a proposition." The woman stepped back slightly, protective instinct kicking in, pulling her daughter closer. The man raised his hands in a peaceful gesture. "I mean no offense. My name is Robert Harrison. I happened to be enjoying the peaceful atmosphere of this wonderful bakery when I heard your conversation." He turned to Sarah. "Miss, what is your finest, most beautiful cake?" Sarah blinked in surprise. "Well, I have a custom chocolate layer cake with buttercream frosting and fresh strawberries. It was ordered for tomorrow, but the customer canceled an hour ago. It's in the back, already decorated." "Perfect," Robert said, pulling out his wallet. "I would like to purchase that cake." He then turned to the mother and daughter. "And I would be honored if you would accept it as a gift for this young lady's birthday." The woman's eyes widened. "Sir, I can't possibly—" "Please," Robert interrupted gently, "consider it a birthday gift from a stranger who was once a child who loved birthdays too." He knelt down to the little girl's eye level. "What's your name, sweetheart?" "Emma," the girl whispered shyly. "Emma, that's a beautiful name." Robert smiled warmly. "How old will you be?" 7, Emma said, holding up 7 fingers proudly. 7 is a wonderful age, important age. Robert stood up again, addressing the mother. "I insist, no child should go without a proper birthday cake, especially not when one is available." The mother's eyes filled with tears. "I don't know what to say. This is too generous. You don't need to say anything," Robert assured her. "Just promise me you'll both enjoy every bite." Sarah had already moved to the back, retrieving the magnificent 3-layer cake. It was indeed beautiful, rich chocolate layers with smooth buttercream frosting, decorated with fresh strawberries and delicate chocolate shavings. She brought it out carefully, placing it on the counter. Emma's face lit up like the sun breaking through clouds. "Mama, look, it's so pretty." The mother covered her mouth, tears now flowing freely. "Sir, thank you. Thank you so much. You don't understand what this means." Robert paid Sarah generously, adding an extra $100. "For your kindness and excellent work," he told the baker, who tried to protest the excessive tip. As the mother and daughter prepared to leave, carefully carrying their precious cargo, Emma turned back. "Mr. Harrison, will you come to my birthday party? It's just going to be me and Mama, but you could come if you want." The mother looked mortified. "Emma, sweetheart, I'm sure Mr. Harrison has important—" "Actually," Robert interrupted with a genuine smile, "I would be delighted. If your mother agrees, of course." And so the next day, Robert Harrison, one of the wealthiest real estate developers in the state, a man whose net worth exceeded $200 million, found himself sitting in a tiny apartment on the third floor of a worn-down building, singing happy birthday to a 7-year-old girl he had met the day before. The apartment was small but spotlessly clean. The furniture was old but cared for. There were books everywhere. Library books, Sarah noticed, stacked neatly on every available surface. The walls held Emma's artwork, colorful crayon drawings of families and flowers and sunshine. The mother, whose name was Patricia, had prepared a simple meal with what she had: spaghetti with tomato sauce, garlic bread, and a small salad. She apologized repeatedly for the humble fare, but Robert insisted it was perfect. "Mrs. Patricia," Robert said as they ate, "may I ask you something personal? You don't have to answer if you're uncomfortable." Patricia nodded hesitantly. "What's your situation? Forgive me for being direct, but I've lived long enough to know when someone is facing real hardship." Patricia was quiet for a moment, glancing at Emma, who was happily eating her spaghetti. Then she spoke, her voice steady despite the pain in her story. "My husband died 2 years ago. Cancer. The medical bills took everything we had and more. I worked 2 jobs, cleaning offices at night and waitressing during the day. Emma stays with our neighbor Mrs. Rodriguez when I'm working, but I pay her what I can. I'm trying, I really am, but it's never quite enough. We're 3 months behind on rent. Mama works really hard," Emma added proudly. "She's the best mama." Robert listened intently, his expression thoughtful. He asked about Patricia's skills, her background. She had been an accountant before Emma was born, he learned, but her certifications had lapsed and she had no computer at home to study for the recertification exams. The birthday party continued with cake and laughter. Robert told stories from his own childhood, carefully omitting details about his current wealth. He made balloon animals from the balloons he had brought, much to Emma's delight. He was present, genuinely engaged, treating this modest celebration with the same respect he might give a high society gala. As the evening wound down and it was time for Emma to sleep, Robert prepared to leave. At the door, he handed Patricia an envelope. "Please don't open this until I've gone," he said quietly. "And please, accept it in the spirit it's given, as one human being helping another." Patricia started to protest, but something in Robert's eyes stopped her. She nodded, accepting the envelope with trembling hands. "Thank you," she whispered, "for everything. For seeing us. For making Emma's birthday magical." Robert smiled. "Thank you for reminding me why I do what I do. Take care of that wonderful daughter of yours." After Robert left, Patricia opened the envelope with shaking hands. Inside was a check that made her gasp, $50,000. But there was more. A business card for his company with a handwritten note on the back. "Patricia, talent and character deserve opportunity. If you're interested, I have a position for a junior accountant at my company. We provide full benefits, including health insurance, and will sponsor your recertification. The salary is $65,000 to start. We also have an employee assistance program that helps with housing. Call my direct line if you're interested. You don't owe me anything, just pay it forward someday when you can." Patricia sank into her chair, the envelope clutched to her chest and wept, not tears of despair this time, but tears of hope and gratitude. Robert Harrison drove home that night to his penthouse overlooking the city, but his mind was in that small apartment. He had made millions in his career, closed countless deals, built an empire from nothing. His story was legendary in business circles, the orphan who became a magnate, the man with the Midas touch. But none of those accomplishments had ever felt as meaningful as this moment. He had heard Patricia's whispered request for an expired cake, and in that vulnerability, that desperate love of a mother for her child, he had seen an opportunity that no amount of money could buy, the chance to make a real, immediate, tangible difference in someone's life. He had built his fortune on recognizing value where others saw none, on seeing potential in overlooked properties and undiscovered markets. Patricia's request for an expired cake had been just that, a diamond in the rough. Not the expired cake itself, but the character it revealed. A mother who would swallow her pride and face embarrassment for her child. A woman who worked herself to exhaustion and still couldn't make ends meet. A person who maintained dignity and grace in the face of crushing circumstances. That night, Robert updated his will. He had no children of his own, no close family. He had already planned to leave most of his fortune to various charities, but now he added a special fund, the Emma Fund he called it, dedicated to helping single parents facing hardship get back on their feet with job training, housing assistance, and educational support. 6 months later, Patricia had completed her recertification and was thriving in her new position. She and Emma had moved into a modest but comfortable apartment in a better neighborhood. Emma was enrolled in a good school and doing wonderfully. Patricia had started a small savings account and could finally breathe without the constant weight of financial terror. But more than that, she had paid it forward, just as Robert had asked. She volunteered at a local shelter, helping other single mothers navigate the overwhelming maze of social services and job applications. She shared her story when appropriate, always emphasizing that help came when she was at her lowest, and that accepting help wasn't weakness, it was courage. Robert and Patricia remained in touch, not as benefactor and recipient, but as friends. He came to Emma's 8th birthday party, and her 9th, and would continue to be a presence in their lives. Emma called him Uncle Robert, and he treasured that title more than any business accolade. Sarah, the baker, also found herself touched by Robert's generosity. He had become a regular customer, and through their conversations, she mentioned her dream of expanding her bakery to include a teaching kitchen, where she could offer free baking classes to underprivileged youth. Robert quietly invested in her dream, asking only that she name one scholarship after Emma. The story of what happened that day in the bakery spread quietly through the community, not through Robert's doing. He actively avoided publicity, but through the ripple effects of kindness. People who heard the story were inspired to look for their own expired cake moments, those small opportunities to make a difference that cost less than we imagine but mean more than we know. Years later, Emma would write a college essay about that 7th birthday, about the stranger who heard her mother's whispered request and saw not poverty or embarrassment, but humanity and love worthy of respect and support. She would study business and social work, dedicating herself to creating systemic solutions to poverty, always remembering that massive change often begins with a single act of human kindness. And Robert Harrison, in his later years, would often think back to that afternoon in the bakery. He had overheard countless conversations in his life, had been in position to help many times. But something about Patricia's quiet desperation, her willingness to face embarrassment for her daughter's happiness, had struck a chord deep within him. He had heard everything that day in the bakery, and in hearing, he had found something more valuable than all his millions, the profound privilege of changing a life simply because he could, simply because it was right, simply because in that moment he recognized that true wealth isn't measured in bank accounts, but in the connections we forge and the lives we touch. The millionaire had heard everything, and everything had changed.